I would like to also now introduce Piers and from Modify. Again, is another really exciting platform versus a personal journey, although I'm sure he's going to tell us how he got there as a designer himself and CTO. So Piers, great. Thanks for coming along. I know you're West Coast today. Please take it away. I'll go off camera again and over to you.
Thanks, James, and thanks, Lauren, as well. That was a absolutely amazing presentation. Loved every minute of it, and great to start with so much energy as well. Hope I can keep the energy up. So it's funny, James, you were saying that maybe I would tell people a bit about my own personal journey. I actually realized during the opening of Lauren's presentation that I hadn't actually put anything in my deck that told anyone who I was. So I very hastily threw the next through slides together, just to give you a little bit of an idea about my background, and then we'll jump into Modify, which is what most of the presentation is about. So this is how I got to where I am today. So I'm co-founder and CTO at Modify, but I actually started out in the very early days of my career as a designer, and spent the first sort of 5 years or so working as mainly a graphic designer and also an illustrator. And then moved into software engineering, spent about 10 years doing that. Then sort of got back into doing 3D artwork in particular. So went kind of right back to my creative roots, I guess you could say. And then, yeah, more recently became a founder. In terms of what I do when I'm just doing purely creative stuff, I like to make kind of insane things like this. Yeah, really crazy sort of sculptural artwork, generally using typography as the basis in some way or another to kind of create the underlying structure. And in general, I'm just a massive typography nerd, to be honest. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of where my kind of creative heart lies. But yes, as we all know, I'm not here to talk to you about that today. I'm here to talk about Modify. So let's jump into that, which is the app that the team and I have been building over the past 2 years, just over 2 years now. So this is an idea of the agenda we'll run through. So we'll talk a bit about an overview of what Modify is, then we'll run through some of our motion and image guided generation features, and then we'll have time for QA and follow-up, some information about a follow-up demo that we'll be doing next week in Discord. All right. So yeah, to begin with, let's just talk a bit about what Modify is and how it fits into the creative tools landscape. So the way we're thinking about what we're building is really that it's the first design app, or really we think of it more of it as a design platform that's built for multidisciplinary designers out of the box. And in fact, a large proportion of the team at Modify, including me, actually come from design backgrounds ourselves. And so we've all, as a team, actually grown up using the tools that I'm sure everyone on this call knows inside out. So things like Photoshop and Illustrator, After Effects, and then more recently, things like Procreate and, of course, Figma. And we're building Modify because we recognize that designers are increasingly multidisciplinary these days. So they're shifting from image making to motion design, illustration to logo design, and so on, all really in a day's work. And you're having to jump between many different pieces of software in order to do that. And now that we've had this explosion really of AI tools in the very recent past, designers are spending more and more time honestly just managing their toolkit instead of being able to focus on what really matters, which is, doing the creating. So we're building Modify to be the design platform for hybrid and multidisciplinary designers. So you can design, animate, and use AI all in one app. And when I say design, what I'm talking about there is like really incredible, kind of outlandish, crazy visual design. So we're building a toolkit that really allows you to realize any creative vision you have. And our mission is really to enable designers like all of you to spend more time doing what you do best, which is making brilliant work, and less time just managing a million different tools, moving back and forth between all of those different packages and researching and learning new tools and tech all the time. All right, so let's take a look at what that actually means. So I'll just let this video play while I talk over the top of it and just introduce some of the sort of core tooling. So firstly, we're built for blisteringly fast performance, and everything that you do in Modify is completely non-destructive. That means that you can change your mind about anything that you're doing or anything that you've done in the past, anywhere in your project at any time, and the document will just update in real time. So in the video here, I'm using the repeater modifier, which is one of our built-in effects. And as I'm tweaking the properties, I'm tweaking the properties of that modifier over on the right-hand side. Let's just get back to the point that we were at. You can see that the elements are just updating in real time in the canvas as I'm doing that. And all of this is just running directly in the browser with this instant rendering. That non-destructivity is coupled rather with all of the things, honestly, that you'd expect from a professional design package. So we've got layers, and they do all the things that you would expect layers to do. So you can stack them and group them and transform them and blend them together in interesting ways. On top of layers, we have something that we call modifiers. And you can think of those as basically like effects or filters. They're all 100% real time and non-destructive. So you can see here again, I'm making changes to this slice shift modifier, and all of my changes are just reflected immediately as soon as I make them. You can also stack modifiers. So in a moment, I put a halftone modifier on top and then blend it with the modifier underneath to get this kind of interesting halftone effect between those slices that were added in the previous step. We also have a unique hybrid combination of bitmap and vector tooling. So you can do crazy bitmap based filters using that real-time modifier stack, but you can also use the sort of best-in-class vector tooling and then combine that with those like bitmap sort of processing pipelines that you've built. You can make really insane stuff, but use the best tools for the job all the time. And we also provide masking. So anyone who's used to Photoshop or After Effects style workflows will know just how important masking is to creating various types of effect. And we have full non-destructive masking capability built right into the app. That's all of the basics. So just to give you an idea of the types of things that can be created with those tools, here are 3 just example images that I exported. And I thought it would be useful just to give you an idea of what the layers panels, what the processing stacks look like that actually create those visuals. And you can see there's actually not a lot going on here. So just a really small number of base elements, a few modifiers stacked on top, and then we're getting this amazing emergent complexity as a result of those kind of processing nodes. So everything we've talked about up until now is all sort of static graphics, but very recently we actually added motion to the app as well. And this is one of the aspects that makes Modify truly multidisciplinary. Honestly, it's been kind of crazy. Like since we added this to the app, the whole team has just been become completely addicted to it, and we're getting quite a lot less done than we used to because we just find it really hard to put down. Just to give you an idea of the types of things that we're doing there. So we've really taken a very fresh look at how motion is added to projects. Any property of any modifier can be animated. And one thing that we have focused on in particular is making it really easy to create seamlessly looping animations. So out of the box, any animations that you add to your project will just loop perfectly when they get to the end of the video and loop back around again, which is something that's actually really difficult to create with traditional motion design packages. And another thing that's really different about building motion graphics in Modify is that there's no boundary between editing and playback. So once you've started adding animation to a project, you can then actually click play, start it playing, and then just keep tweaking while the playback is in progress. There's no like round previewing. There's no like, hit play, wait for a period of time, and then you're in playback mode. And then if you want to make a change, you've got to go back into edit mode. It's just sort of seamless real-time playback and editing all the time. And honestly, this is kind of the most mind-blowing thing that came out of the addition of motion to the app. recently. We almost hadn't even planned for this to be part of the product, and as soon as we started playing with it, we just realized there was no turning back. So I thought I'd just jump over into a project to actually demonstrate what that looks like. So I'm going to the Modify homepage here and just scrolling down to the community section, and we'll dig into Remix, this project. That'll open that project in the Modify app. And once I'm in there, I can actually then just hit play and immediately start seeing that animation playing. And while that's playing, I can jump in and, for example, let's disable this mask. So we can now see this sort of full text that's playing, that's animating up and down here. We can jump in and change the text. So let's make it say hello instead. And let's put that mask back on. We can also, let's jump into this lens distortion effect, and I'll just turn these animations off. Now I can just grab hold of that lens distortion and move it around while the animation is playing. So you can imagine like the ability to sort of tweak to get your motion really looking perfect is completely transformed by the ability to do this. There's no more of that sort of having to think about what effect your changes might have, make them, then look at the playback and realize that it's not quite what you wanted and go back again. You're just always in that playback and edit mode all the time. Here are a couple of quick examples of some projects that were built using motion, just to give you an idea of the type of kind of diversity that you can achieve. Again, seamless loops, just right out of the box. Again, I don't have examples of the layers that we use to create this, to create each of these, but there's really not a lot of complexity going on there. And all of these are linked to from the homepage, so you can just jump in and start editing them. All right, so we've covered some of the image making basics and the motion features. Let's take a look at some AI stuff. I honestly think this is probably the quickest I've ever run through anything like this, because we've tried to pack a lot of information into a short time. I'm kind of losing my breath a little bit, but let's keep going. So before we jump into a demo, I wanted to take a minute just to explain a bit about our philosophy, I guess, in terms of how we've been approaching adding AI to the app. And I personally see AI as being split into two categories, and those categories are utility and generative. So on the utility side, we have tools like background removal, object removal, automatic splitting to layers, things that just basically save you time doing mundane things and allow you to focus on interesting creative stuff. And we have all of these built right into the app. So in this example, I've used the split to layers feature to split the foreground and the background here. So I've now got separate layers for each of those, and I'm able to add modifiers to each of those layers individually. And you can imagine just how many creative possibilities that opens up. And it's adding the modifiers that's the interesting part. You know, no one likes cutting out the legs and the sneakers here. So just being able to automate those things and let you get on with the interesting parts is really what all of that utility AI is about. Then we have the second category, which is broadly referred to as generative AI. And as I'm sure everyone will be very aware, especially after Lauren's presentation just now, there is a huge amount going on in this area throughout the industry. There's also a lot of hype. And I personally, I'm really excited. I think there's massive potential for whole new aesthetics to emerge from generative AI. But for us, or for Modify, it's really only interesting when there's a designer or an artist in the driving seat. And as designers, we've all spent countless years, refining our craft. And what I think really is that AI tools should allow you to exercise, or allow you new ways rather of exercising all of those creative skills. So what we've been focused on building is a next generation suite of generative AI that allows the designer to work in a really hands-on way. So you're actually using your design skills to art direct what's happening right down to the pixel level. And I think the best way to do this is probably to jump into a demo. So again, I've started with a project that's available on our homepage, and here we're using Modify's image guided generation to create this kind of crazy looking image. And we can take a quick look at some of the other images that were generated as part of this project. I picked this one out because I just personally was kind of blown away when I saw the first set of results come back. And I think it's a great example of new aesthetics, honestly. Like I really can't imagine ever having arrived at an image that looks like this without the workflow that generative AI plus all of that creative, the traditional creative tooling that we talked about earlier in the call presents, the combination of those two things together. So here we're using one of the inbuilt styles, which is called antique print. And that gives us this amazing sort of chromolithograph type look. I've actually applied some tweaks because it looks a bit sort of yellowy and antique by default, but I've just sort of white balanced it and tweaked it a little bit. If we, in the layers panel, if we turn off the image guided generation layer, we can look underneath at what the inputs were. And in fact, actually, I can split the inputs into a side panel and just compare those two side by side. So underneath the image guided generation layer, we've got a pixelation modifier that's creating that pixelated effect. Then we've got a bunch of different strokes that I've added. Maybe I'll just swap these around. That's clearly input and output. I've got some strokes that I've added, and these are just vectors, so I can jump in and change those. Underneath that, I've got a mirror modifier, and then basically just an image that I pulled from Unsplash. And I've collaged those together, added in that pixelation, and then run that through the antique print image guided generation to end up with this kind of insane outcome. And one thing that's really nice is that just like modifiers, generative AI rather in Modify is part of the layers panel, so it can be stacked and combined in interesting ways to blend together aesthetics that honestly have no business being combined with each other. So, for example, I took another pass on top of the antique print output, so on top of this guy. I ran it through another image guided generation layer. This time I chose the plastic style from our style library, and we end up with something that looks like this. Let's turn off that tweaks layer. Again, like just really novel, crazy aesthetics that if you gave me a million years, I don't think I would ever come up with something, if I was just sat down with Procreate or something like that looked precisely like this. It's like really eye-opening to even know that these types of aesthetics are achievable. Another quick example, this is just another kind of another part of the aesthetic universe. Let's put those tweaks back on. This is using the garden style. And I'd again put that on top of the antique print one. So if I fade between them, you can see just how well it's informed by the previous pass. But we've been sort of transported through a wormhole to like a completely different part of the stylistic universe. All right. Now I thought it might be interesting to just talk a little bit about how some of that works very quickly. So what our process does is it takes those inputs that you've created, so the input image here on the left-hand side, it extracts what we refer to as contours. So that's those images in the middle, those lines rather in the middle. And it then uses those extracted contours to basically, you can think of it as constraining the image generation process. So when the image is being generated, it has to adhere to the lines that we've specified. But in the gaps in between, it's allowed its own sort of creative freedom, basically. It can do what it wants. And that's where you get that kind of serendipitous injection of kind of AI madness. But it's still kind of under your art direction, your compositional control. This is just one example. This is contour-based guidance. We have 4 different guidance modes that allow for lots of different types of creative control, including color. And we have a bunch of really crazy, very exciting stuff coming in that space in the very near future. Cool. Yeah, very quickly, I wanted to to just mention another demo that we'll be doing next Thursday. So we've run through quite a lot of stuff in a short space of time here because we wanted to give everybody just a taste really of what Modify has to offer. But as you can imagine, this is kind of one of those topics where you can just go as deep as you have time to go. So we'll be doing a full hour walkthrough on our Discord server next week. And yeah, please do make sure to register for that if you're interested. I imagine we'll send the link around after the talk. Another couple of things just to mention just quickly. We have an experimental features beta testing group. And so for anyone who is interested in trying out sort of the next set of crazy new stuff that we're working on at any sort of particular point in time, because there's always always a lot of that happening. If you're okay with things potentially being a bit rough around the edges, but getting your hands on early access to some next generation creative madness, then yeah, please do sign up for that when you've gone through the sign up flow and hit your dashboard. There should be a link on your dashboard. And yeah, that was everything I had to talk about.
Yes.
We'd love to take any questions if people have them.
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, I can see you going at hype speed there. I would definitely encourage everybody who's interested, such fantastic comments coming in, to go onto the Discord. I think this was the appetizer today. So I want to say thank you, Piers, and also to your co-founder, Joe, who's in the audience as well today. It often, it takes an army to do something like this, and you guys are leading the way. A couple of questions that came through the chat. Is this free beta? Is it a paid subscription? What's your immediate response to that question? Because people are asking.
Yes, yeah, it's so it's free, and we have no plans to start charging anytime soon. At some point in the future, we will have to make some money, and it's most likely that we would be charging for team-based usage, like team-based professional usage, basically. So very similar model to companies like Figma. We will always have some form of like a free package or a free tier. And at some point, there will likely be perhaps a limit on the number of projects you can create in that free tier, something along those lines. We're still in the early stages of working out precisely what that looks like. But yeah, for the time being, it's completely free. The only thing that we do charge for is when you run image generation, we have to run that process on a cloud machine. Those cloud machines are expensive, and we don't want to burn through all of our funding. So we give you 500 free credits when you sign up, which is enough for, I think, about 250 high-res image generations, which is plenty to get going. Honestly, a lot of people take some time to burn through that. Then we do charge for those once you've run out, but it's super cheap. It's like $5 for another 500 credits. So really affordable, and everything else is totally free.
Great. And next, I've got two more questions. The next one is, again, a little bit more about people wanting to get their hands rolled up immediately. What sort of length of time does it take? Because you were going so fast, and this is your baby. How long would it take someone who's never been a Modify to sort of just wrap their head around it and start using it?
Yeah, great question. So one thing that I would really recommend is working through our walkthroughs. So if I'll just open my homepage here. As soon as you drop into your dashboard, along the top of the screen, you'll see, can you still see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Great, cool. Along the top of my screen, you'll see a row of walkthroughs. If I click into, for example, the repeater walkthrough, that loads up a project which is specifically designed to take you through a particular kind of feature. So this will walk you through like manipulating properties and sort of getting the hang of how that works in a very sort of hands-on way. And there are a full set of these available that take you through loads of really interesting aspects of Modify, including motion. So yeah, highly recommend that. We also have some great content on YouTube. These two talks in particular were just added recently, and they cover a bunch of the motion features. There are also some that cover image guided generation. So those are great resources.
Right.
And then, of course, Discord. Like we're always on Discord, and we love answering questions and hearing feedback. So yeah, please do drop in and ask. In terms of how long it takes, I think one thing that we're really keen on is the idea of play as learning, or learning through play. And I would anticipate that after a couple of like evening sessions of just playing around, you'll get the basics down really quickly. And then it's really just about finding your own kind of voice within the tooling that we're providing, and really allowing your artistic style to come through, like through the lens of all of the amazing tooling that the app provides.
Great. We've got a few minutes left. One last question, and then maybe if you want to stop sharing and we can see you on this last question. From a cultural impact perspective, from design trends of the future, how do you think AI in general, a broader question than really just your sole product, could influence? We see new trends coming out every January. These are the trends for this year. Do you think that AI and will navigate some of those trends and lead them in the future?
I think it's inevitable. I'm genuinely extremely excited about what that looks like. I think if you look at what's happened historically, large aesthetic or stylistic shifts have often gone hand in hand with the introduction of new technologies in one way or another. That's one of the main drivers. And I think with the introduction of AI, we're on the cusp of honestly a massive rush of new, I would say, heavily maximalist stylistic development. And I'm really pumped to see what that looks like. In particular, I think two main things. I think one thing we'll see is that motion becomes a much more prevalent part of visual communication in general. And the reason for that is really that the barrier to entry in terms of adding sophisticated motion to a project is being lowered so significantly by AI. I think we'll see really, really cool stuff happening there. And of course, everything's on screens these days, so there's no barrier to things becoming that would previously have been static, becoming motion. One other thing that I'm interested in to see what happens really is I anticipate that there'll be some sort of rebellion to the sort of generic AI aesthetic, which we've already seen emerging. It's like it's only been a short time that image generation has existed, but there's already a kind of clear aesthetic that people associate with image generation, and certainly with certain image generation platforms. And I think I would anticipate that we'll see designers kind of moving against that and creating new, I guess you could sort of think of them as like punk aesthetics that AI finds difficult to replicate. So I think we'll find people seeking out parts of the aesthetic universe that are hard for AI to reach in order to help identify their work as human created. And I think that itself will be really interesting to see how those kind of co-evolve. And I hope that Modify gives people the tools to do that.